Hey Deanne, how's it going? Welcome in. So this is hard maple. Little double check to make sure that we'll be able to true it up. Hey Dino, how's it going? Welcome in. We got a little bit of vibration. So rather than making an 8-inch shaft, we're going to make a 6-inch. Hey E-Dog, how's it going? Welcome in. Alright, so here's one that I have yarn on. So we're making the center shaft right now. So you take a fiber. I don't have any out here because it's a workshop, but just big pieces of this stuff. You put twist into it, so it's the same as a spinning wheel. This is what came before spinning wheels. So wool under a microscope has scales. Once you put twist into it, the scales interlock. That's what gives yarn its strength. So, yep, so spindles are what came before the spinning wheels. So for like 9,000 years, this is what kept us going. What do you use your spindles for? Making yarn. Yep, so I've been making spindles full-time for about 13 years now. So the ones I'm making right now more than likely will be coming with us to North Carolina. We're located in Wisconsin. Our next show is in North Carolina in Raleigh. And then we just picked up a new show in May in Illinois. Well, yeah, we've been using spindles since at least Neolithic times. As far as popularity goes, I mean, it is a niche market. I mean, fiber arts has been, quite popular in the last, few years. So a lot of people that, crochet or knit are, wanting more control out of what they're making and start spinning. And, a new spindle will cost you, whatever, 40, 50 bucks. Where a new spinning wheel, you're going to drop, $500 starting for a wooden one. $800 is more of a, getting something okay kind of range. So. So the yarn that you would spin on a spindle would be the same yarn that you would spin on a wheel. As far as making the yarn, the drafting, the process of doing it is the same. So you could start out with this, and then you could, work up to a wheel if that's something you wanted to do. So I'm making Turkish drop spindles. So they're actually 3 pieces. So we're making the shafts right now. I do have more to cut out. And hello, 000. Welcome in. So yeah, so we do sell them online. We got SnyderSpindles.com, and we also have Etsy. So I have over 27,000 sales. So it is a thing. I make some other things as well, but primarily it's a lot of different types of spindles. And I mean, let me go grab some stuff. So I also make these. You put these together. These aren't sanded or finished yet, but so you got these. Yeah, you got these big things here. So this is a nitty knotty. This is how you wind your yarn to make a hank. So primarily, yeah, it's all fibers kind of stuff. I started making these trays. This one isn't sanded yet, but you know, it's got a sheep on it. But yeah, this channel here, I do a lot of like scroll saw work. You know, I'll make patterns for, you know, just some decorative stuff as well. But yeah, this is pretty much, it keeps me busy doing this. Give you a little peek here. Yeah, so it's my little lathe area here. Come over here. I've got another lathe set up right now. I'm going to be putting a duplicator on it. I've got a little mega duplicator over here to be put in. But yeah, you know, they're the spinning wheels. We got 2 rooms in the back that aren't heated, but eventually I'll be putting a new stand on this guy and getting it running. I mean, it runs. It's just make it a little bit better. So, come up to the front. You know, I make stuff like that by hand as well. Did a video on making this anti-disestablishmentarian sign. Those are old wheels. I'm actually fixing them up. So this is where some of our inventory goes. That's Etsy, that's Shopify. And you know, you always need a Viki. You know, everybody needs a shop piano. Because they just put them on the side of the road. You might as well just pick them up. I also do 3D printing. I'm making some Turkish spindles out of PLA right now. Yeah, so they're old wheels. I do repair them. And then we got a few laser engravers as well. We got an old CO2 back there. Then we got a little Galvo here. And a larger diode as well. So yeah, so we're in this little old it used to be a grocery store back in 1900. So it's kind of a little old rundown building, and it's just perfect for a workshop. So, and it's 5 minutes away from my house. So I was working out of the house for a lot of years, so it's nice to have a separate space. My neighbor next door on that side that we share a wall with is also a woodworker, so. We also have a full basement. I do a lot of finishing in the basement. So I just took my last antibiotic this morning. I got hit with, I hate to say it, I got hit with cat scratch fever. Ted Nugent made it sound like it was way better than it actually was. Oh, I was laid up for quite a few days. Yeah, as far as the spinning wheels go, I have 5 of them are Mayville wheels that were made about 30 miles away from me. They started in the Civil War and went to, was it 1940 something? So it's one of those where I'll buy 2 of them, and if I can get one complete wheel out of 2, that's not bad. They're relatively inexpensive, so there's something that I can pass along to people working. It's not about making a ton of money on those. It's about getting the product, the tool in the right hands. And I do spin. Like yesterday, I got called in to do and knit. Yeah, I do knit. Not a great knitter, more of a crocheter myself, but I can knit. But yeah, a guild just got a hold of me, and I just did a presentation for them last night. Hey Bob, how's it going? Hey Jesse, how's it going? Welcome in. And we are turning hard maple. these are relatively thin, so that's why I'm supporting them. Yeah. So we're doing our best to keep all the vibration out of it. So the bottom will be sanded out and put waxed in the next step. So by using the story stick to transfer over the lines, you get a very consistent size. Line them up. Hello, 22. I do. So the question was, do I use the smaller scrap pieces to make other ones? Absolutely. That's why they're. I'm putting them in a bin. Hey, Elmi, how's it going? So this is the smallest shaft. This is 4 1/4, and then this is the largest shaft I make, which is 10 inches. And then there's a lot of different sizes in between. And the pieces that are messed up or really small, I use them for kindling at home. You get a fireplace. Everything gets used. So it feels like I'm constantly moving scrap wood, big garbage cans from here back home. But it's just a beautiful thing to do. I mean, Yeah, so we're gonna come from the lathe over here, and then we'll go to the scroll saw and start cutting out the arms. Looks like I got a bunch of cherry today. Yeah, so as far as Snyder Spindles goes, it's a two-person operation. My girlfriend's been working with me for quite a few years. So she does a lot of layout work and a lot of sanding and a lot of the computer work, which just kind of frees me up to do this stuff. So it works. The majority of them are hard maple, but I will use other woods as well. We got yellow heart here and some Vera wood. And I believe this is Caribbean rosewood. So yeah, we'll do exotic woods as well. But yeah, maple's the primary. The hard maple. If they're smaller ones, I will make them out of maple, but I don't make a lot of big shafts out of maple, out of black walnut, I'm sorry. Black walnut has a, can warp over time. There's a company that was making black walnut knitting needles, and yeah, did not work out for them very well. Welcome in. So yeah, people use other woods. There was a gentleman in, I believe, Yugoslavia, who was using like just pine. I know this because I had to replace a bunch of shafts for people because the pine wasn't holding up. When I do live stream, I tend to be either on here or on the scroll saw. It's easier because I can have a static camera and you can see what's going on. Hey P, how's it going? Welcome in. This is wire. This is picture frame hanging wire, where I took two strands off and applied it together. A lot of people use guitar strings, metal guitar strings. It's just a way to burn in decorative lines. It just makes the beads pop. is very, very warped. So this one more than likely is not going to work. But we'll try it. We might end up with a little one on this one. Alright, I'm going to back off the tailstock. We're clamped into the four-jaw chuck, so it's not going anywhere. Got a little bit of vibration. Yeah, so like from here on is okay. See all that vibration? I would have to think about what a pawn looks like. Yeah, if this doesn't work out for me, I could always make artisanal Gulf teas. Can make Gulf teas out of fine mahogany. When you gotta separate yourself from the peasants. They're a small ball. Well, I have got a very large tool rest on here right now. Oh, normally there's a bead in there, isn't there? No, it's I'm just supporting it. It's just by the time I do anything, it's already smooth. So. I feel it's a little big. You know, if I was going to do this for real, I would have a pattern to follow, but it's a little pawny. I'd have to sand it flat. Yeah, you get the idea. So. I do have to make shafts. It is kind of, this is my day job. But yeah. It looks pawn-esque. It will stand up if I had a flat surface to put it on. There you go. Yeah, and I used to make Christmas trees out of this little stuff. You know, and then you would just sand that out. You know, you could use some paints on that or marker. Then brown for the bottom. So I let it kind of be chattery, so you get that kind of the little stripe look. So yeah. I have been woodworking, I don't know, probably since 1987, I would want to say. My dad brought a scroll saw home when I was like 12. A little bit of vibration on this one will make it a 6. My grandfather was a wood carver. He used to carve decoys, among other things. So I spent a summer at my grandfather's, well, a few weeks at my grandfather's house, and he taught me how to carve. So I started making wooden signs and wooden toys to sell on Etsy. I started that way back in 2008. So I made a lot of things like this. A lot of food, a lot of bacon, a lot of WTF. So that was fun. A lot of gnome doors. I was making gnome doors in like 2008, 2009. A little bit early on those. Well, I did make wands for a while. But I made wands for little kids. They were very blunt. But yeah, I really have to keep going on the shafts. I need to get a couple dozen made today, this morning. You know, I'm very blessed that I can do this for a living. I worked in factories for 18 years. This is way better. I think I'm going to make this one to a 7-inch. So, you know, I used to have a lot of international orders. I used to sell a ton to Canada and to Australia, a lot of Europe. But yeah, ever since the tariffs kicked in, my international sales have gone. And I totally get it. So the 3D printers, I make a lot of fiber tools as well. I make a lot of doodads that you can use for making yarn or playing with yarn. So I'll make like lucettes, some little holders for felting needles. So you can put 3 felting needles in a little handle, so you can stab 3 times instead of once. Yeah. So I've got 5 printers. Not a whole lot. I got rid of a lot of the older ones, but I did keep 1 King Rune printer and 1 Creality Ender 3. Just because they're dialed in, so it didn't make sense to get rid of them. How did I hurt my hand? I don't know. What are you talking about there? I thought my hands were looking pretty good. Yeah. I think when I filled up my bin, I had some that were rejected in the bottom. Oh. Like here? I had carpal tunnel surgery on both wrists. I don't know. Put a razor blade through that knuckle. Yeah, so I worked for 13 years in a bindery. I worked in the finishing department. I put magazines together. And then after that, I went to Oshkosh Truck, and I was an assembler for mainly military vehicles. Cement trucks, military vehicles. So yeah, my hands have some scarring on them, that's for sure. Hey Reza, how's it going? Welcome in. So this is my favorite scar. So I was probably 6 or 7, and I was pounding nails, and I had my hand on a board, and I missed the nail and took a big chunk out of my hand there. So right now we're spinning at 3,564 RPMs. So you can see it's running really straight. It looks good. Looks like it's standing still. So I'm going to support it, and I'm going to cut it off on the bottom. I don't know if you can see how small that is. Hey, Joe, how's it going? We're starting to make artisanal golf tees. A count. If I got 12 of these, I think we're going to mosey on over to the scroll saw, start cutting out some arms. Nice thing about the scroll saw is I can sit down. So we got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We'll do one more. might help a little bit. That might help a little bit. I'm feeling more roof. All right. So we now have 12 shafts. Let's go make 12 arms. No, just a brat patty for now would be great. All right, so we're now over to the scroll saw. So this one is cherry. This is 5/8 inch cherry. Oh, thank you. The little 3D printed ones. Yeah, so here, let me show you something. So those little sheep, got a handful of glow-in-the-dark ones here. Got earrings in there too. So yeah, we make earrings, we make stitch markers out of these little guys. I give them away, so when people order something, they end up with a little sheep and a little duck. So when we get to the end of rolls of filament, we'll print out little sheep to use up the rest of the roll. So, and that's why I keep the older printers around too. So, you know, when you start getting down to that, you just make sheep on the slower printers. There we go. There's one that's done. So these are the same style arms that were. Yeah, that's the reason I kept those two printers. They're dialed in. They do a fine job, honestly. So let's make another one. We'll make an orange one again. And this size, let's do a blue one. So we don't need to do any of the bed leveling or anything. We've already ran some jobs on here. There we go. So we'll get those running. So yeah, unfortunately with this, the way the arms are, I have to print these little guys to help hold it down. So I'll tear them off and then I'll come back with a reamer and just ream over the edge. Yeah. Yep, so I had the idea about making these spindles out of, with a 3D printer. And this was in, I think, 2017, 2018. And, ow, I ended up doing prototyping, got a provisional patent in, and then I did a Kickstarter, and I was able to raise enough money to buy 2 printers. So those are Ultimaker 2s, which were like the creme de la creme in that time frame. You know, you either had an Ultimaker, a Lulz bot, or a MakerBot. That was, you know, the 3 big names. You know, or you could get, you know, clones like Reality stuff. So we put down blue painter's tape and then we glue a paper pattern to the top of that. So the reason for that is basically make a big sticker. So when we're done, I can just peel off the tape. And then there's no residual glue or anything that you're gonna have to deal with. So now we're gonna cut a mortise. So we're gonna cut a rectangle hole. And that's the nice thing about the scroll saw is you can take the clamp off the top, drill an entry hole, put the blade in, and then make internal cuts. All right, we'll do a test fit. And I'm going to put a rat tail bastard file through here. I'm just verifying that the holes are centered. So I'll flip it around the other side. There you go. Grab one of the shafts we just made. And this is ready for balancing and sanding. I'm going to drill the entry holes. Cut these into more manageable pieces. So you can see how nice of a finish we're getting off the scroll saw. So I'm using a number 7 blade, which is pretty big, but I'm not making anything with fine detail on here, so it just allows me to cut a little bit faster. These are Olson precision ground tooth blades. I used to get them from Menards. They're about $1 each. But you can go directly to Olson's website and you can order a gross of them. I think they're like $80. So you get 144 for 80. So it's not half the price, but it's definitely a better price. But you just have to, you know, find a specific blade you like. Otherwise, you're going to end up with 12 dozen of them that, you know, will be sitting around collecting dust. That being said, so this is some of the scroll saw blades I have. They're all different. I got some straight ones, I got some spiral ones, a lot of different sizes in here. The saw itself holds a dozen blades, so the other side has another whole rack too. So. Thank you, honey.
Pause, or do you want to eat it in between?
I'm gonna eat it in between.
Okay.
So, whole rat patty.
Should be. I cooked it for like.
Let's go.
Good. Okay, I cooked it for like 10 minutes, so.
Cool. There you go.
You want that? Does
Sure.
it matter?
All right. Yeah, I plan on streaming for about another 40 minutes. And then probably take a nap. Yeah. So I got cat scratch fever. And I just finished up my antibiotics today. So I am starting to feel better. Yes, I do. So yeah, we'll do little critter cutouts and stuff. For that, I'll put a much smaller size blade on. Let me grab a cutout. So there's an example. You know. And I got a whole bunch of different ones, cats and F-holes, butterflies, dragonflies, Tyrannosaurus rexes. There's F-holes. There's a bunch of different ones. Don't get me wrong. I also have some, you know, that I laser engrave designs on as well. But yeah, the cutouts are all handwork. Pattern off. Let's just bring it down a little bit. feel, see how it works. It's good. Let me grab a bite here. You have to eat when you're working so you can when you take your break. No, you have to eat while you're working. That way you can take a nap when you take your break.
Right? You can take a nap whenever you want.
Yeah.
That's the nice thing about it.
Yeah. So, yeah, cat scratch disease. Oh my God. I don't know if it's because I'm diabetic, but I got hit bad. I'm healing and I am not feeling that great. Very lethargic, which is very unlike me. So yeah, if you're interested in getting into scroll sawing, I do have a bunch of tutorial videos, a bunch of beginner videos. What? And some review videos as well in different saws.
So I did all that work to get the laser engraved bottom of that sci-fi recloth, and I put the wrong weight on. I'm like, I'm not sanding it. Just,
Not a big deal.
it's like 1.1 ounces, and it's not,
I'll take your word for it. Right? There we go. Got another full board here. This one has 4 on. I'm just going to cut it in half right away before I even start cutting, just to make it a little bit easier to maneuver. Now you might be thinking, wow, you're wasting a lot of wood here. We actually will put a second smaller spindle in this space here. It's just because of the crescent shape, you're always going to have waste. So just extend it a little bit, then you can, get 2 spindles out of the same piece. Then I'm going to drill the pilot holes. I do keep a little drill press next to me here. That way I don't have to get up all the time. So I'm looking around the shop. We've got one biggish drill press and two smaller drill presses in here. We are making Turkish drop spindles that are used to spin yarn. So these are 5/8 inch thick cherry, which I believe is like, what, 16, 17 millimeters thick. So it is 37 degrees outside. We are having a tropical heat wave here in Wisconsin. There's a big swing between like -17 and 37. Hey Claude, how's it going? Welcome in. Oh, this piece has a split in it right there. So unfortunately, this one is not going to make the grade. but it will go in my fireplace. Yeah, so these are pretty much going into inventory. We are getting ready for a show in March in Raleigh, North Carolina. And then we picked up a new show in Chicago in May, I believe. So when it's cold and it's wintry, try to get as much done as you can. That way, when it's nice and warm and sunny, you can sneak away and go fishing once in a while. And I believe I'm old enough now where I can eat as many wild caught fish as I want. And I don't have to worry about the mercury in them because I'm old. All right. So grab one of the shafts that we just made earlier in the stream. There we go. That thing is ready for sanding. Yeah, so if you're just joining me, I've been making these full-time for the last 13 years. Find something you're passionate about. You know, I run across on, I believe TikTok, a guy that makes shaving brushes, and all he does is make shaving brushes. You know, and that's his thing. You know. I'm sure there's somebody out there who makes wooden tops for a living. I know there's pen makers who make, you know, wooden pens for a living. Let me grab another bite here. This cherry is so pretty. It really is. And it's only going to get prettier. It's going to get a nice patina over time and deepen up. I'm going to have to make it just a little bit bigger. It's close. So you can always take more wood off. It's just really hard to put more wood back on. That makes sense. So these, you need to have a gap because it's the middle of winter now. It's dry in here. In the summer, it's going to get moisture. They're going to expand. So you got to give yourself some wiggle room. All right. What's that?
I'm gonna try a piece of chocolate.
Thank you. So I do get a lot of my wood from a local lumber mill. Not really, it's a half hour away. Local enough. And a lot of the times, if you get your wood directly from a mill, it's considerably less than if you buy it from a big box store. There's just, less hands to, put money into before you buy it. Pretty much all the wood I use is kiln dried because I do ship internationally, and it ensures that if there's a critter in the wood, it's dead. You know, Australia has a lot of rules. Anything with bark on it is confiscated. It's not allowed. Which makes sense. You got to keep, you don't want to, create an issue. Shipping to here in Australia is so expensive. It is. It really is. My international sales have dried up just because of all the tariffs and the uncertainties. So, I mean, I sell maybe, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 items abroad a week. But that's like way, way, way down. Yeah, we're planning on heading out to Australia in 2 years, hopefully, maybe 3. We want to go to a fiber show in July. I know it's winter, but, that's when the shows are. Trying to think. Hey, honey. Honey. She's wearing headphones. She's watching Ghost Adventures. What town is that show in Australia? Bendigo, yeah. So. Yep, I make 3D printed ones as well. I'm actually printing a couple right now. We'll go look at them. The ones I'm cutting out, I'm making 3D printed ones that are the same shape. Don't think I have any built. I make a bunch of different 3D printed ones as well. So we got some over here that are done. So, yeah. The wooden ones sell better, to be honest. But the 3D printed ones I can charge less. So, if you're just starting out, if you're younger, the 3D printed ones are fine. If you're, in your 40s, you're going to look at them and be like, I really want wood. yeah, I think bumming around a couple weeks in Australia and going to Bendigo would be a lot of fun. Very weird thing, but you know, it's kind of like what I do. It's a fiber show. I believe it's Australia's largest fiber show. Yeah, when I was in, I think, 5th grade, we had a exchange teacher from Australia. Lovely lady. Told me I always had my mind in the gutter. Don't get me wrong, she wasn't wrong. She had to go get her picture taken standing on one of the frozen lakes to prove that she was standing on water. She was like Jesus. It was amazing. We are making Turkish drop spindles that are used to spin yarn. $58.15. Welcome in. Yep, I've got like one more to go after this one, and then it's time for me to take a break. I am just getting over cat scratch fever. Ted Nugent, I think, got cat scratch fever mixed up with some other infliction because this isn't cool. Oh. So you can see I am using a magnifier. Just makes life so much easier. And it's lit up too. So. All right, guys, I'd like to thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I'll be back tomorrow. Not sure what time. Your best bet, if you like hanging out with me, would be to subscribe and ring the bell so you'll get notified. You can always shut that off as well. I mean, I just don't have a set schedule. So. Not a problem. Have a good day, guys. Yeah, we'll catch you next time. TTFN. And be nice to people. It doesn't cost you anything.